celebration, I want to welcome you to Serendipity Sunday. I'm Asar, also known as Greg Stanton. I'll be your facilitator for this morning's teaching. It's an honor, as usual, to guide you through this journey of insight and inspiration. So today, we're going to explore a powerful topic that can transform the way you navigate your life. It's called the season of shutting the door to gain clarity. So together we're going to uncover how disconnecting from the distractions can help us connect more deeply with our divine purpose and manifest the lives that each of us desire to manifest. So as we begin this morning, I'd like to share a story. The story has to do with, for me, putting this together earlier this week and during our reflections. I heard this statement in my mind. So years ago, I had a wonderful secretary named Tonette. She was the church secretary. Whenever she heard something, her office was located right outside my office. So you would enter my office on one side through her office. So you had to gain access that way. And then there was another way you could enter my office right off the hallway, but most people visiting would enter through the secretary's office. But so our offices were adjacent to one another, and I often would leave my door closed so she could have a level of privacy, and so could I. But she often hear her speaking loudly over the phone. So that's where this story comes from. Whenever she heard something shocking, surprising, or unbelievable, she would respond with an emphatic, "Shut the door." Okay. This phrase wasn't just her reaction, it became a reminder of the importance of shutting out distractions and focusing only on what matters, even though she may have been using it in another way. But for me, when I hear that term, shut the door, it applies to this morning's presentation. This simple yet powerful phrase, shut the door, brings us to our topic today. How shutting our distractions and can lead us to a profound clarity and a deeper connection with our true selves. But more than just a physical act, we are going to explore the idea from a metaphysical perspective. A way of interpreting our experiences is key that goes beyond the physical, entering into the realm of thoughts, beliefs, and consciousness. So we're going to explore that with some depth on this morning. But at the same time, we're going to make some space for a deeper conversation that'll take place later on in this week. Now, metaphysical interpretations help us to uncover the deeper meanings behind scriptural teachings that we come across and how they apply to our lives. It encourages us to look beyond the surface and recognize the spiritual lessons that are embedded within these ancient texts that we read, particularly the Bible. Today, we're going to explore how the concept of shutting the door can be understood not just as a physical action that you should do, but as a symbolic inner journey towards clarity and divine alignment. So as I go through this morning, if there's something you want to share, feel free to go ahead and put it into the chat there. I'll be bouncing in and out of the chat as I move forward. There's a scripture, Matthew 6:6. I'm going to kind of expand on that this morning. It goes, but when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And you're familiar with that scripture, but let's unpack it. At first glance, this scripture might seem like a simple instruction about how to pray. However, as we dive deeper into it, we'll explore its profound metaphysical meanings. So let's break down each part of this morning so that way we can get the gist of what has really been hidden from us. It talks about going into your room. Metaphysically, this represents turning inward, entering the inner sanctuary of your mind and consciousness. It's about retreating from the outer world, moving into a private, sacred space where you can connect with your true self and your divine nature, not just a physical space, but you go inside. Okay, this room that is talked about is symbolizes the inner chamber of your thoughts, your emotions, where your intentions and your belief reside. Better yet, it's deeper than that. It is that place where you align with, attune with, come in a one with source. And it tells us we are suggested, admonished to close the door. Shutting the door means deliberately shutting out distractions, doubts, fears, and the noise from the external world. We have all kinds of noise coming in and out daily. It represents creating a boundary that separates your inner world from your outer influences. This action signifies the choice to focus solely on our inner vision and divine guidance, to enter into a space of stillness where your true power can be accessed. You access power not from the outside, but it's accessed from the outside. And it goes on to tell you not only to close the door, but it tells us who we should speak to. It says, pray to your Father who is unseen. Now we know that I and the Father are one. So it's almost like you're talking to yourself. This is a great form of self-talk when you realize that the God you're looking for out there is the God that's has been apportioned to this physical container. So you want to pray to your Father who is unseen. Now, this emphasizes that the divine presence or the source within, some of you may still say God, is not found in the outer world, not out there, not up there, but within ourselves. The unseen Father symbolizes the higher consciousness or the universal intelligence that resides within each of us, a portion in all of us. It's in this inner space that we connect with our divine nature. And it's from here that we draw the strength, the guidance, and the inspiration to manifest our desires. So, this conversation is not just about manifesting our desires, but it's really about what's foundational to living a life of mastery. And it goes on in that scripture, it says, then after you have closed the door and you begin to focus your prayer, then you to your Father, it says, then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. This final portion of the scripture teaches us that the reward of our intentions, our petitions, our declarations, and our desires are cultivated in secret in the unseen space of our inner world of our minds. The divine energy responds to what we nurture and affirm in this sacred space, manifesting our desires into our external reality. The reward that you'll find is the realization of our intentions and the fulfillment of our desires, which we were first cultivating in the quiet, in the solitude, in the private moments of our inner communion. This is key. So, as your facilitator today, I want to emphasize that the metaphysical meaning of Matthew 6 and 6 teaches us that our true power is to create and to manifest. It lies in our ability to retreat into the inner sanctuary, to shut the door on external distractions, and to disconnect with the from the outside world and to connect with the divine presence that's within all of us. It says, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High," and that's why we need to spend time in quietude, in solitude, in meditation. This is where transformation begins. Now, how often do you take time to retreat into your inner sanctuary, shutting the door to the distractions and aligning with your divine purpose? Are you willing to cultivate this practice to receive the rewards that are waiting for you? That's not just rhetorical, but I want you to think about that. Now, I want to give you an example this morning, a primary example that we're going to use to understand this process about shutting the door. Now, if you go back through the ancient texts or the wisdom texts of the Bible, you'll find there's a number of occasions where they were told to shut the door, or the door was shut. When Noah assembled all of the animals, the door was shut. Now we're gonna unpack that so you can really understand what that story was about. It wasn't about a physical thing that really happened, but it's a metaphorical story that I want to unpack later on in the week. That was an example. And so we have a number of examples of this. And one of the ones I want to just pull out this morning is the one that has to do with Elisha and the Shunammite woman son. This is found in 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 32 and 33. But some of you may not be familiar with it. So let me first share a brief summary of this story. And some of you may have forgotten it or may not have never heard it. The Shunammite woman was a kind and generous person who provided food and shelter to the prophet Elijah whenever he traveled through her town. In gratitude for her kindness, Elijah, which is the prophet, promised that she would have a son. Even though she and her husband were older and childless, as promised, the woman gave birth ultimately to a son. But years later, the child became ill and died suddenly. Yes, died. And in her distress, the woman sought out Elijah. Now he's dead. And she finds Elijah, who returns to her home. And when Elijah arrived and saw the lifeless boy, at least dead 2 to 3 days, lying on the couch, he went into the room and he shut the door behind him, alone with the child. Elisha prayed and connected with the divine presence, ultimately bringing the boy back to life. Now, as we examine this story together, let's look for the deeper metaphysical lesson that is to be unpacked here. This is important. When Elijah chose to shut that door, he made a conscious decision to separate himself from the physical reality of the situation. And how many of us, we go into prayer, but we take the physical realities of the situations or the circumstances into the prayer room. So here we find he shut the door on the physical reality of the appearance of death and any external distractions or doubts that might have hindered his connection with the divine. So metaphysically, shutting the door for Elijah symbolized rejecting the appearance of limitation. Now, we have to realize that rejecting the appearance of what the outside signs are showing us. So the door symbolized rejecting the appearance of limitations, hopelessness, and fear. It's an intentional act of choosing to enter a space where only divine truth and possibility exists. Notice that. When you go into that space, you're in a space where only divine truth, not your personal truth, you're acknowledging divine truth and you are having an encounter with possibility. So, in that private, undisturbed space, Elisha connected with his divine power and aligned with the higher consciousness that transcends the physical realm. By shutting the door, he was able to silence the doubt and fear, focusing solely on the power of life and resurrection that existed within him. This allowed him to tap into the infinite potential of the divine of the divine that was in him, that was working through him, and call forth life from a seemingly impossible situation. Boy dead, number of days. But Elijah goes into the secret space and he begins to align with source. And he begins to carry forth the actions not based on what was going on externally outside that door. For us, Elijah's story serves as a reminder that when we face challenges, setbacks, or seemingly impossible situations that some of you may be going through right now, We must first shut the door. Silence your doubts. Silence your fears. I have a dear person that I've recently met that I'm concerned about. She received a diagnosis and a prognosis, and she's hanging in the outside. And because she's not able to shake what has been told to her, what is apparent, what is really real on the outside, I'm concerned for her. So I and many others on our prayer line, we're interceding on her behalf. But here's what we're praying. We're praying most of all that source's highest and greatest good be made manifest in her life. And like each of you, you have to be careful that you don't allow the doubts and the fears to pick up momentum. You got to go to that silent place. And he entered into that space where he could connect with the divine power. So it teaches us again that miracles happen when we are willing to shut out distractions and focus on the limitless possibilities that's within us. Now, what situations in your life appears lifeless or impossible right now? What's dead? Do you have a dream? Do you have an idea that's lying dormant that you have even said is over, is dead? So, what situation in your life appears lifeless or impossible? How can you follow Elisha's example? By shutting the door on doubt and fear and creating a space where divine possibilities can manifest. Where? Let me see if I have any comments here. Okay, nobody's commenting. So let's apply the practice in daily life. You may say, how can this concept translate into my daily life? Well, just as Elisha shut the door to connect with the divine, we too can apply this principle in our everyday experiences. As your facilitator, I encourage you to consider how you can create moments to shut the door on distractions. Whether it's setting aside time each morning for a quiet reflection, turning off your phone to focus on your goals, or simply taking a few moments to breathe deeply and reconnect with your inner self. Now, I highly recommend that last one. Throughout your day, you can go in and shut the door. On your break, you find that quiet place and you go inside. And it's as simple as just following your breath, focusing on your breath, making sure you're taking a full breath in, holding that breath in gratitude, releasing that breath, and then centering. Now, this week, I want you to do that. I want you to choose an area in your life where you will consciously shut the door and create a sacred space for yourself, free from distractions, where you can reflect, visualize, and realign with your divine purpose. I want you to do that. I want you to know that Source is no respecter of persons. And this story regarding Elisha depicts the ability that we have to bring life back to a lifeless situation. But before you resurrect anything, before you bring anything that appears to be dead or dying or resuscitated, make sure it should thrive. It should be part of your life. Some things, like this fall of the year, you have to just naturally allow them to fall away. Allow them to fall to the ground and die. For the scriptures tells us, except a grain of corn falls to the ground and dies, it abides alone. But if that kernel falls to the ground, it's buried, and the natural process takes place, in the next season it shall bear much fruit. So sometimes the things that appear to be dying, the things that you're losing, is oftentimes a seed that has been sown for something better. For doesn't the scripture say your latter days shall be better than your former days? So some things must naturally be released. Some things must be allowed to end. Before you can have a new beginning, you must have an old ending. And so when we look at this story of Elisha shutting the door, it tells us that when we shut the door on the outside, nothing is there on the inside to distract us, to remind us, to speak to us that will cause fear. Shut the door on outside distractions. Some of us need to shut the door. We need to shut it down because we are listening, paying attention to that thing is growing, it's grabbing momentum. Now, I have an affirmation for you today. Let's anchor this teaching with this affirmation. I'm going to state it once, and I'm going to ask that you be participatory. Here's the affirmation for this week. I choose to shut the door on distractions and open myself to divine clarity and guidance. In this sacred space, I manifest my highest potential. Now, let's say it like this. I choose to shut the door on distractions and open myself to divine clarity and guidance. In this sacred space, I acknowledge my highest and greatest good. Because in this space, it's not about creating or doing anything, it's about acknowledging. So let's say that together. I choose to shut the door on distractions and open myself to divine clarity and guidance in this sacred space. I acknowledge my highest potential. One last time. I choose to shut the door on distractions and open myself to divine clarity and guidance. In this sacred space, I acknowledge my highest potential. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So this morning, I just wanted to kind of speak to you about the possibility that each of you have. The possibility to bring to life the situation that appears to be dead. The possibility that you have to create or to destroy the contrast that is showing up in your life. But you must not focus on the contrast because what you focus on grows. You go inside and you realign with truth. I am perfect, whole, and complete. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I live in a universe that is abundant. I can look into the stars and see the abundance of source. I can go to the seashores and see the abundance of source. I can look on the sidewalks and come across that which has been discarded only because there's an abundance. So we want to align ourselves with the universal truths, not the impressions that have been made upon us by what is going on around us. So I want to ask you something. If today's teaching has stirred you or stirred something within you, I invite each of you to join me this Tuesday at 7 p.m. via Zoom for Transformation Tuesdays, where I'll continue to shut the door on distractions and explore this powerful practice in even greater details. So together, we'll delve deeper into how to apply this in our lives, creating a space where we can align with our highest, greatest good and our intentions. Now, as we've seen through Matthew chapter 6, the story of Elijah, an inspiration from my secretary's statement or phrase, shutting the door is a powerful act of intention, faith, and alignment, and I can say even attunement. It allows us to create a sacred space where clarity, divine guidance, and purpose can take root and flourish in our lives. So, this week, I challenge you I want you to challenge yourself to shut the door on distractions. What distractions do you have? You already know. Okay, the distraction can be the pile of bills that are on your table that you don't want to open up. The distraction can be a upcoming medical appointment that you really don't want to go to. The distraction can be even a procedure that is scheduled. Shut the door. Go inside. I want you to step into your sacred space and watch and listen as clarity and purpose flows through you, not to you, through you. You remember when in the story of the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus asked the disciples, "Can you pray with me, watch and pray?" And he came back and they were asleep. He said, "What? You couldn't pray for 1 hour. You couldn't shut the door on the outside distraction or the physical essence of falling asleep." For we watched Jesus and we see something here in this story. In that story, we see that he wasn't praying most of the time when they thought he was praying. He actually was shutting the door. And if you we see in one of his dialogues that he was shutting the door, that he could see what source was showing him, so that he could hear what source was saying to him. And sometimes we have so many distractions that we can't hear the audible that source is calling. What is an audible? Anybody who knows anything about football knows sometimes when that quarterback steps up to take the ball from the center and he looks across that offensive line over into the defense, and based on what they are showing him, he knows maybe I should call it audible. But sometimes the very thing that they're showing him is the thing that dictates for him to call an audible. And so he goes inside and he says a few magic words. Everybody knows what they mean, and the play is changed. When we go inside, Source calls the audibles. Source lets you know what it is you're to do. Sometimes we get an assignment and we just go on autopilot. But you got to have a life of going into the secret place. He who dwells mean spend time in. That doesn't mean that you're there all the time, but the secret place is a place that you spend time in. Now, that's important. Remember the power to create, transform, and manifest lies solely in you, you alone. There's no God out there. There's no God even in here that will not do anything unless there's an alignment between you and the Father. So when you shut the door to distractions, you open yourself to divine clarity and the limitless possibilities that await you. This is your moment. This is your life. Step into your season of clarity. Stop being a wandering generality. Know with specificity what it is you have come here to do, be, or express. Step into it. This is the season. Watch your life unfold. We're aligning ourselves, we're syncing ourselves with nature. Nature, if you look around, is shifting. It's beautiful, but it's dying. And the tree embraces the shift. And this tree knows if its roots are deep, that no matter what transpired during the winter season, spring will come again and summer will be full blossom. Your life is the same way. Take the next 90 days, this season that we call autumn, this season that we call fall, to fall into the secret place. Because after fall comes the winter. So we're moving closer and closer to where all labor shall cease. The winter is a time to create, to go into the silence, and to align with. So I want to thank each of you for being part of this morning's Serendipity Sunday experience. I look forward to seeing you this Tuesday as we continue this journey together. Now, before we go into the green room, I make space. Every week, I make space for those of you who are part of this ministry, those of you who have maybe caught the something. You may have come out on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday for prayer, and you got blessed, or you listened to an old YouTube presentation, but it blessed you. Why don't you consider being a blessing to the ministry? You don't bless the ministry because we are in need, but you bless the ministry because you have found value here. You tip your waiter because there was value, supposedly, but now it's just commonplace. And it's so common, I believe, that it's even giving has become common. We have not really stepped inside of the sacredness of the opportunity to give. When I give, when I sow the seed, it's saying to the universe that I trust you. It's saying to the universe, thank you. It's saying to the individual that may have blessed me, thank you. You know, God does not drop things out of the air for people. God gets things into the earth and into the lives of people through people such as you and I. So if this ministry has been a blessing, you can sow the seed by way of going to the website Oasis-Spiritual Center, now Oasis-Everywhere.com, or you can go to Oasis-Spiritual-Center.com, go over to the giving tab, and there you'll find the various ways where you can transmute what's in your hand into the ministry. In addition to that, if you use Zelle or Cash App and you want to expedite it, you can just type in the phone number. And if someone will type the number in on the chats for me, I appreciate it. That number is 708 368 1076. 708 368 1076. Awesome. And I encourage you to go out to the website, poke around, find out what we're doing this week. I want to thank you for sowing the seed into this ministry. And I say, those you have given, circulate, circulate, circulate. So, all right, let's go into the green room for a few minutes.